everyone. Welcome to the 293rd episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have a pretty awesome show for you today. We're recording this the day after the election, and we've got a bunch of news coming from not who the actual president is at this time, but we do know several laws that will affect the Internet of Things that have passed, so we're going to talk about those. We are also going to talk about Nest offering HVAC monitoring, which is pretty sweet. ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, has a smart device we're going to tell you about. We also have, I'm going to call this a neat thing that I'm kind of eyeing as a Christmas present for someone. Plus, we've got updates on AI. They can tell you some things about your voice and some things about people. I also have been testing out the Amazon Halo, which is their wearable fitness tracking health device thing. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about early thoughts there, maybe a little comparison with the Whoop band that I've also been testing. And our guest this week is Nick Kuchereski of Qualcomm. He's going to be talking about home Wi-Fi networks. He gives us a little education on Wi-Fi 6 and mesh. Plus, he's going to tell us where they go next. We're also going to hear from our sponsor, Silicon Labs. It's the last week from them, but we are really excited. Yay. And we're going to now go to our new sponsor for the show, TerraCode. Get your IoT project off the ground and take it to the next level with TerraCode. TerraCode has helped a major medical device manufacturer connect devices and figure out when they needed servicing, a week ahead of time with close to 100% accuracy. TerraCode's also helped an energy company connect its fleet of equipment to predict service calls. You can learn more and get a free IoT audit at terracode.com. That's TERA code.com. All right, big thank you to TerraCode for sponsoring. Let's get started. All right, the election, fraught, anxiety-inducing, lots of things. We still don't actually know Wednesday morning how the country is going to go, so we're not going to talk about that. But we do know about a couple propositions that have passed in various states that we thought were worth talking about. So let's go now to Massachusetts, where they had question 1 on the ballot that relates to telematics. Kevin, you want to talk about it?
I do, and I also want to stress that even though this happened in Massachusetts, this will likely affect the entire country. But I'll get to that after I explain what actually passed. Basically, starting in with 2022 vehicles, manufacturers of those cars sold in Massachusetts that capture any telematics data, such as brakes, speeds, whatever it might be about a vehicle. It could be from other sensors, cameras and so on. If that data is transferred wirelessly to a remote server, the owners of the motor vehicles would actually have access to that same data through a mobile app. And they can authorize the independent repair facilities who are not affiliated with the car manufacturer, and other dealerships, maybe not affiliated with the car manufacturer, could get that data as well. So this is really interesting to me because I actually do access a lot of data from my current car and my last 2 cars because I changed the software. I reprogram it to get more performance out of the vehicle. This is more for right to repair, which is probably more relevant to most people. Here's the thing about why this is important for the entire US, because this has to do with any cars sold in Massachusetts. So any car maker who is going to sell in Massachusetts is going to have to, I presume, equip its cars with this mobile app. But to do that, would they do it just for cars that are going into Massachusetts? No, they're probably going to have to do it for all of them.
Yes, we're going to be talking about that for California's latest proposition in a moment. But yes, that is true, unless they just decide, we're not going to sell this in Massachusetts.
The thing is, car dealers often get like a highly desirable vehicle or a certain configuration from other dealerships from other states and other locations. So they're going to have to, I think, just do this outright.
Yeah, and this is good for right to repair. Why?
Well, because there's proprietary information, so to speak, that only the dealership that sold you the car, for example, has access to, and your car breaks down and so on. If nobody else has that information, you have to go to that dealership. There's no competition. Local repair shops can't get it. Other dealerships can't get it. How can they help you then? It basically fosters competition for auto repairs.
Yes, and that is essential. And that's actually going to be, I think, more important going forward as our physical devices become constrained and optimized by software. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. As software becomes more important and you derive more value from the software in a physical device, we're going to see companies really try to control and lock down access to the software. So this is a way to try to kind of reduce that level of control. So it's good. So now let's talk about another law, Proposition 24, which passed in California. All eyes were really focused on Proposition 22, which is about gig employees. Uber and Lyft were focused on that. But this law is really important for the IoT and anybody who's hanging out on the internet. And just like Massachusetts' law, California's laws, because they, affect a huge proportion of the United States, there's a large population there, they usually end up kind of influencing everything. So in 2018, California passed the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, and that went into effect this year. But the person who helped promote that decided that it wasn't enough. So that's how we got to Proposition 24. He suggested that we kind of boost that law. So Proposition 24 lets you tell the business to limit the use of your sensitive data, such as your exact location, health information, race, and religion. It also prohibits businesses from holding on to your data for longer than necessary. And it allows the government to fine companies up to $7,500 for violating children's privacy rights. That's triple the fines in the CCPA. And it also is going to create a new state agency to enforce privacy laws. And the prior version just had the Attorney General do that. And the Attorney General is actually this year talked about and started enforcing it. And then it also only applies to the biggest companies. So only companies that have at least 100,000 households a year. So if you're a startup working on consumer data, this doesn't really apply to you. Prior to that, it was a revenue threshold, I believe. So the CCPA had a revenue threshold. Some things to think about here. People are a little upset in the privacy community is actually split on this. So the tech people are just like, let them fight it out. We'll just see what happens. But in the privacy community, a lot of children's organizations are like very for this because they want to really protect children's data. Ironically, the ACLU and some other organizations, Public Citizen and the Consumer Federation of California, were against it because they really wanted to see how the CCPA affected things. So it's really hard to say like what this is going to do because it basically rips out a brand new law and gives us another like year or two to figure this out. So for IoT companies who are like, oh, what do we do now? I would abide by the CCPA because you've got to. And I'm going to talk to people and find out kind of how this will affect their operations going forward because we just don't know yet. So stay tuned.
I'm kind of curious who determines or businesses can keep data longer than necessary. That's going to vary so much by the vertical, by the company, by the product.
Yeah, we'll have to see. That's one of those phrases that the courts will probably fight over. But I do think the creation of a agency solely regulated, solely focused on privacy is really interesting. And I'm kind of curious because I feel like we might want something like that at the federal level. So this could become a model, or maybe it'll become please don't ever do this for the federal government. So we'll see. All right. One more law to talk about. Portland, Maine has joined many cities in voting to ban facial recognition. Yay.
Yeah, that's good. If police scan your face, you're subject to facial recognition, you would get a minimum of $1,000 in fines from the offending, not from the directly personally, but from the police department, I presume.
Oh, so the police department is fined. I don't actually get the fine.
No, you would get it. You wouldn't get it from that officer is what I'm saying.
Oh, I personally get $1,000 if they scan my face and use it
private citizens are entitled to a minimum of $1,000 in civil fees if they're surveilled in violation of the ordinance. Absolutely.
So this is relevant because with all the protesting happening this summer and this year, we've actually seen federal agencies and police departments scan people's faces and use them to find criminals and to charge people.
Yep.
So, of course, if they use it and you are actually committing a crime, I am curious if you get $1,000, but you also still get to go to jail.
You're a criminal. Here's your $1,000 and lock them up. I have no idea.
This will be interesting. All right, let's talk about smart devices now. Nest The new $129 cheaper Nest thermostat it's not just cheaper. It also does HVAC monitoring, as do all of the other Nest thermostats out there. So I think this is really cool. This is kind of the promise of IoT and AI and data analysis. What this is doing is Google has enough data now to say, hey, when we see these trends in thermostats, this tends to be what it means for your HVAC system. And so this is going to hopefully, when Google notices like, hey, maybe your house the heat is turning on way more often than it did last year, or maybe it is turning on and the house isn't getting warm enough, it's going to be like, hey, by the way, you should call your HVAC repair person because I think this is about to break. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think that's kind of what we want with connected devices.
Yes. Predictive type technology.
Yeah. And this is the kind of stuff that makes your life easier. Your HVAC system is really important in the summer or winter, depending on where you live. It would be nice to get a forewarning so you don't have to wake up really freezing cold and wait for 3 days because everybody else's HVAC is crapped out at the same time. So yay. Google is also, I don't know, is this good, bad? Google Nest is hanging up phone call support in the UK.
I don't quite understand why. They haven't actually said why, but Google has announced that in middle of next month, December 2020, you can't make Google-supported calls on your smart speakers or displays. You could still do them through Duo, but not everybody does that. So I'm not sure what the deal is. I don't know if it's a new privacy rule that's kicking in the UK or...
It maybe just be they want to consolidate their communications platform.
The company that's had 10 different messaging applications? Nah.
I mean, maybe.
It could be, but why not just do it everywhere then? Not just in the UK. It's really strange.
I'm sure there's something. If y'all know, let us know. We'll update the story. In device news, I just thought this was kind of fun because everybody's excited about TikTok. But ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, has created its first smart device. It's like Facebook getting into consumer hardware, I guess. And like the Facebook portal, it's a smart lamp with a display. And it has a camera, it has a digital assistant. And this is in China. It's $119, and it's aimed at children. And the idea is they'll put this lamp on their desk and they use it to work on their homework. It's going to let parents remotely see their kid and help tutor them via their app. This is really interesting because the idea is parents are away from their children because they can leave their houses and go to work, unlike here. And their children usually, they're in school and doing a lot of homework. They're in school most of the day, but they do come home and do homework and maybe the parent isn't there. You can check in via this smart lamp and help them with their homework. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that ByteDance, they're trying to expand beyond TikTok. So in India, they had actually expanded to do educational programming, essentially.
Yeah, they'd have this whole educational push. It's kind of like, we've got your kids on TikTok. Now let's think about educating them.
Let's make them smarter. It's interesting. They've got 10,000 people working on the education products, so this is no small investment for them. And this is one way to deliver that. Makes sense. If I'm a student working at a desk, I'm probably going to want a lamp or something, and it just makes sense to have that display that you could then provide educational programming with.
Yeah, sure. Here in the U.S., that doesn't fly because your kids on the... sure.
No.
Okay. Let's talk about a cool device you can buy. Actually, it's a Kickstarter. It should be delivered later this year.
You want this.
I do. I want this. So this is a device called Milo. It's a walkie-talkie type product. It's a no-button, round little device, heavy gauge plastic. It's waterproof, sport-proof, we'll call it. And you're supposed to stick it on you and you can talk to people inside your Milo group. So it creates this communication network that is... It's not cellular, it's not Wi-Fi, it's probably a proprietary sub-gigahertz radio. You can talk to people in your group. It has 6 microphones in there. It suppresses wind noise, and it also creates a mesh network so you can talk one-to-one. So if I've got one and the person I'm bike riding with has one, we can get about 600 meters apart. But if there's more of us, we can actually get up to a mile apart because it creates this mesh network where communication might pass to the nearest person before going to the other person. And I don't know, Kevin, I really want this because my husband and we go on bike rides and, it's walkie-talkies don't work. You can put a Bluetooth device under your helmet and talk. I don't know. It feels like it solves a problem, but it's very expensive. So to buy 2 of these as part of the Kickstarter, it's $319.
That's a lot.
It's steep. A single one is $169, although I don't know why you would want a single one unless I guess.
It's like getting the first fax machine.
Yeah. And it just goes up from there.
It has some neat features. I mean, the 6 microphones with the noise cancellation and the fact that you can wear it while being active and it's hands-free and they create a mesh network, all really cool. But that's a lot of money. I mean, we have FRS radios, high-powered ones that I had to apply for a FCC license for. And they cost me like $60, and they work like a mile and a half. No, they don't use mesh, and yes, I have to push to talk. So it wouldn't work on a bike. I agree with that, but it's a lot of money. You really have to want this, I think, to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, but if you're like the kind of person who's going skiing with a group of friends, you probably have a lot of money.
That's why I don't ski with a lot of friends.
I don't either, but that's because I grew up in Texas. But yes, so I throw this out there because y'all like gadgets. I think this solves a very real problem for people, and it is expensive, but it's also the holidays. So it's Milo. It's on Kickstarter. If you're interested, you have another week. Okay, let's talk about innovations in AI.
Yeah, this is not an actual product. This is more of, as you said, an innovation. This is from Carnegie Mellon University researchers. They basically have a machine learning model that can pretty much detect where a voice is coming from. So this is something that could be used on a future product such as a smart speaker, but it's not something that's available right now. What they found is, and they've trained the model to learn this, clear speech, very loud. They can determine, obviously, that's pretty easy to figure out where the individual is speaking, but they've also tweaked their algorithm to detect where somebody is based on the amount of muffled sound that's changed in frequency and so on. So what I like about this is it's all done locally. Once the model is on hardware, there's no need to talk to it in the cloud. So from a privacy standpoint, this is a good thing. And it could be very useful in the future because your devices could kind of figure out where you are, what you may be looking at, what you want to control without having to say it. So there's a lot of potential here.
I like it. And yes, kind of gives you a little bit of that location in a room, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it helps you understand maybe where someone is in the house. So sure. And your other news, less exciting from a consumer's point and maybe a little terrifying.
A little freaky. Yes, this is a military product or a product that's being developed for the military. A former Navy SEAL is the co-founder of a company called Shield AI. And through his time as a SEAL, he learned, we could be going to buildings or places where we don't know where the bad guys are. We're going to walk in and are we walking into an ambush, et cetera? His company has developed a drone to figure out if people are in an area and where exactly they are. The drone is autonomous, though, which really freaks me out. And granted, I can see the military usage for this, but we know how technologies and products filter out into other areas, such as consumer or maybe local law enforcement and all that. So I'm a little bit impressed by the product and a little bit freaked out by the product.
That's how I feel about a lot of tech for the military and a lot of AI. Ooh, cool. Wait, freaky. How are we going to use this? Okay, so that's the terrifying section of the show. Let's talk about also terrifying, actually. I'm like, wait a second, this is kind of terrifying. So I am here giving my first impressions on the Amazon Halo device. If you don't remember, Amazon launched this, was it the beginning of September they announced this? They just were like, hey, by the way, y'all, we did a fitness tracker. And not only is it going to be a fitness tracker, it's also going to measure the tone of voice to tell you how you feel. We're also going to take pictures of your close to naked body and give you body fat composition data to help you get healthier. And so I'm going to tell you, I am on my right wrist. I am wearing the Amazon Halo, and I have been since Sunday. And then on my left wrist, I'm still wearing the Whoop band that I'm still playing with.
Neither has a display, which I think is still very interesting.
Oh my goodness. Let me just tell y'all, I am just constantly, I'm like looking at one wrist. I'm like, what time is it? That's just me having a hard time. But some things to know about the Halo. One, tone, freakiest feature, right? All of that is local. What happens on the device is you can opt into it. So you don't actually have to use this feature. But if you do, you're turning on a microphone on the device. And every now and then it samples your conversation and says, hey, you sounded this way. during this moment in time. And I spend most of my time in a very neutral place where I sound fairly normal energy, fairly neutral. So right now, it's saying that I'm confident, I'm knowledgeable, and I'm informative, which I think is where I'm at.
I would agree.
Although just a second ago, I veered into annoyed. And right now, I sound dismissive.
We tested this earlier in the week and had some conversations, and we kind of tried to make you sound happy. I asked you a question about something that would make you happy, and then also something that would maybe be scary. And it picked up on everything accurately from what I saw.
It does. It also picks up on conversations around you, it sounds like. It did have me test my voice, but when I'm in a conversation with someone, I don't know if it's lag or whatnot, but I feel like it might be checking other people's conversations too. But the other thing from a privacy perspective is if I said something like, I'm going to murder somebody tomorrow, I can actually delete those conversations. And even if I manually do nothing, the conversations that it's recorded get deleted every 24 hours. So that's how that works.
All that happens on your phone, all the processing.
Yes, all the processing happens on the phone, and it never goes to Amazon. Amazon does not know any of this, purportedly.
Good.
I'm waiting for my little thing. I'm doing a live analysis right now, and I'm like waiting for it to go skeptical.
I mean, theoretically, they could get rid of their entire customer review program by giving everybody a halo and then listen when people use the products or open them up and whatnot. There's your review.
So, yes.
Freaky.
It is freaky. It is a little freaky. I have not yet been happy and excited. So the polls on the chart are positive and negative, and then low energy to high energy. And I have yet to be positive and high energy at any given time. And most of my day, I'm low energy and negative, which I feel kind of sad about. I'm like, okay, maybe I should work on that. And that's the idea here. Amazon wants you to know how you interact with other people. So I've also not been high energy and negative. So yay. So, okay, that's a lot about tone. Let's talk about the other data. So you can tell this is not a device geared at the Whoop crowd. And you can tell this because on the activity tracking, your goal is to get 150 points is what they say. I managed to get 150 points in a day. And I did go on a hike, but a point is every minute your band senses you're moving, you get a point. And the more you're moving, if you're doing intense work, that's 2 points. Moderate work is 1 point per minute. And light work is 1 point per 20 minutes. I don't even know what light work is. I mean, maybe it's like you're cooking dinner?
Standing up. I have no idea.
But I'm doing just fine. And when you're sedentary, it takes away points. If you've been sedentary for more than 3 hours.
That's actually very good. I like that a lot.
I apparently am perfectly active in the Amazon world. Its sleep tracking is vastly different than my Whoop's sleep tracking by 2 hours off. So I'm not really sure what's happening there. Because it's on my right wrist, it's giving me, a bruise. I'm so sad. I ended up in the middle of the night last night taking it off apparently while I was sleeping because it was so uncomfortable. So I'm not poised to tell you how accurate or great this is on sleeping because I only have 2 nights of data.
These are shaped very similarly. So I'm just wondering if you were to switch, would you have the same issue with the Whoop on that arm?
I think so. I think maybe my left hand, which is where I'm wearing the Whoop, is hardened by wearing a watch for so many years.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'll try sticking it on the same hand, but that's going to kind of affect the heart rate data. I don't know. Anyway, so this device is available by early access, their invitation thing, and it right now costs $64.99, and that includes 6 months of free membership. After that, the membership is $3.99, and I don't know what else to tell you about this.
$4 a month isn't bad.
No, it's not. It's way better than Whoops, which is $30 a month.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten naked to try the body fat composition. I'm really sorry, y'all. It's just, and I will tell you, if you're uncomfortable, Amazon does give you the option. It's like, hey, do you want to store these in the cloud? And to that, I was like, nope.
No.
So you can store it locally. Maybe next week. I got all the way to the point where it was like, okay, now put on a bikini or a sports bra and some biker shorts and start doing a 3D body scan.
That's a big ask. I think.
I haven't gotten there yet, y'all. I'm so sorry. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll send it to Kevin and make him do it.
Oh, I'll do it. I'm not wearing a bikini, but I'll do that.
I have a scale. The Wise scale tracks body fat composition.
Yep.
And right now it says mine is, I'm so embarrassed to say this.
You don't have to say it.
It's at 31%, which I think is kind of a lot. I don't really know. But I'm not super healthy.
We're not judging. This is a judgment-free show.
I'm pretty sure people might be judging, and that's okay. I am a 42-year-old woman, and I like a glass of wine and a gin and tonic often. This is a long digression. How did we get here, Kevin? Oh my God.
You brought all that up.
So as you can see, the Amazon Halo is triggering a lot of things for me. And I haven't gotten all the way through the review, but we'll get there eventually. And I will say, after another week with the Whoop, just adding to it, I've been working out a lot more because it's like, hey, you have recovered quite a bit and maybe you could work out harder. And I'm like, maybe I could. And I do. Let's talk about something else.
Yes.
Let's go to the hotline because, oh my gosh, it's the beginning of November and we have a winner chicken dinner for the voicemail. Marion is our winner. And she called to ask about Wi-Fi. Maybe we'll answer that next week. But even if, Marion, we don't answer your question, this next segment, our guest, is going to talk a lot about Wi-Fi. So it might be helpful for you. Or it might be too much. I don't know. So Marion, we'll reach out to you and let you know you have won a smart speaker of your choice. So we'll find out which one that is and get that to you. By the way, we have a new sponsor for the IoT Podcast Hotline this week and the rest of these months, actually. It is brought to you by Very. Very is a fully distributed IoT engineering firm helping you get your biggest projects fully operational, on time, and on budget. You can discover what Very's multidisciplinary teams can do at www.verypossible.com. Alrighty. And now for the month of November, it is time for a new Internet of Things podcast hotline prize. And this month's prize will be, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do the August Wi-Fi Smart Lock. This is a device that I reviewed and they did not want back. So we're going to send it out to one of y'all. So if you would like the Wi-Fi enabled August Smart Lock, give us a call at 512-623-7424 and you will be entered to win at the end of the month. Well, you'll be entered to win when you call, but we're going to do the drawing at the end of the month. And now let's go to this week's voicemail. This week's voicemail is from Keith, who is a football fan. Let's hear it.
Hi, Steve and Kevin. This is Keith Farmer from Glendale, Arizona. Love the show. I love NFL football. I love listening to games on AM radio. I love the commentators. I have smart speakers all over the house, Amazon and Google. I can't find an easy way to get AM radio on any of these speakers. I've tried apps, but they get blacked out during the games. Any ideas of how I can get either a device that has an AM radio in it or some kind of Bluetooth dongle or something that I can get radio to broadcast to these devices? I'd like to use the whole house speaker to listen to the games. Love to get your answers on that if you have any. Thank you. Love the show.
Oh, Keith, this is right up my alley only because I know where you are in Glendale. Well, not where exactly you are, but I know that's where the Arizona Cardinals Stadium is, and I've been a fan for 30 years. So I definitely want to look into the question here and see if we get you an answer. So this is tricky. It doesn't sound like it should be, but it is tricky because if you want to listen all over the home, a whole house speaker, as you said, we're room to room to room and hear the game. You can't really do that. The streaming services, or I should say the smart speakers, use Wi-Fi streaming services for that type of functionality. So that's not going to happen as far as I can tell. We also looked around. There are like Bluetooth FM AM radios that are available, but that's not going to do it either, unfortunately. So don't give up because we have a potential solution. I can't test it because I'm not in Arizona right now. But if you subscribe as a TuneIn premium subscriber, TuneIn actually has had for the last 5 years a deal with the NFL to broadcast all of the games online. So there should not be any blackouts. And I should tell you that the subscription service is like $10 a month. You're getting a lot more than just the games. You're getting a ton of radio stations, but you may not care about that. You can cancel it anytime. They do give you 1 month trial. So you can try this coming weekend to see if it works for you. My guess is you probably listen, if I recall correctly, to ESPN 620 on AM radio out there. That's the one where they have the Cardinals games. So TuneIn actually does work with Google and Amazon speakers. You may need to install a Madam A skill for Amazon, and you may need to integrate in the Google Home app your TuneIn subscription to do this. But that should get you your game. And because it's streaming, it shouldn't be blacked out. It shouldn't be limited to one speaker either. You should actually be able to stream this throughout your whole house. That's the best we can do because there just isn't a way to get AM radio easily across these speakers.
So you could basically pay $10 a month during football season and then cancel and then resubscribe. So we're sorry it costs money, but sometimes the best things in life, they cost money.
If I could get the game, because I'm in Pennsylvania, I actually have to pay to watch the Cardinals on whatever service I use, DirecTV, Sunday Ticket, actually, I would do it. And I don't know. It's up to Keith if he wants to spend that money.
Yeah. So there's your solution, Keith. Hope it helps. And y'all, if you have a question for us, we are happy to answer, and you'll be entered to win that August Smart Lock. So give us a call at 512-623-7424, and maybe we can help you. And that concludes this portion of the show. Stay tuned for our guest, Nick Kucharowski of Qualcomm, who's going to be talking about the future of home Wi-Fi networks and why you should buy a Wi-Fi 6 capable router or a mesh of them. Got a mesh of routers over here. I'm just being silly. And now let's go to a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Silicon Labs. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Silicon Labs, and I have Jake Alamet, who is Vice President of Home and Consumer at Silicon Labs, here with us. Hi Jake, how are you doing today?
Great, Stacy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so glad. So let's kick this off by understanding a little bit about what Silicon Labs does.
We are the number one provider of wireless silicon software and solutions, basically to drive a smarter, more connected world. Our technologies really are there to help shape the future of the Internet of Things and can be found in a wide variety of products, including many that are probably within your own home.
Undoubtedly. Okay, so I love talking about the future. And what are the most promising efforts you see in the works today that could really impact people's quality of life in the coming years?
Well, thanks for asking, Stacey. So the smart home of today, it already helps to keep you and your family safe, save you money and time, and provide peace of mind. The most promising efforts on the horizon, they're going to be those that make these tools so simple and cost effective, they become as ubiquitous as the phone in your pocket or the electricity in your home. Things like the Project Connected Home over IP initiative. It's an industry-wide collaboration focused on bringing common user experience to all devices, irrespective of the wireless protocol used. And other initiatives like Amazon Sidewalk, which is a secured IoT network not dependent on the user's broadband connection, which can work across multiple industry standard protocols. These are pretty exciting, and there's also a lot of exciting technology innovations on the horizon to help enable smart home devices to do more with less. A great example of that is AI and IoT, what we lovingly call AIoT. Yeah, it's pretty cool, but what's so promising about that is its ability to help solve problems that until now have been cost or power prohibitive, potentially enabling functions like voice assistance and event detection with just a fraction of the battery power and compute performance. Technologies like AIoT have only just started scratching the surface of what can be done. And there's so many more things that can be done to really dramatically improve the quality of life while also realizing power and cost savings. The great news is Silicon Labs is in the middle of all of these exciting efforts, and we look forward to the future that it'll bring.
That sounds awesome. So where can I go to find out more about Silicon Labs and your work there?
Yep, you can find out more at our website at silabs.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Nick Kucharowski, who is Vice President and General Manager of Wireless Infrastructure and Networking at Qualcomm. Hi, Nick. How are you today?
Very good, Stacey. Thanks very much for hosting me today.
All right. Today we're here talking about, I'm going to go with one of my favorite subjects, which is Wi-Fi. Yay! It's probably one of your favorite subjects too. So in the home, I feel like we have gone from updating our routers maybe every 5 years, sometimes every other generation of Wi-Fi, unless you're hardcore. But with the proliferation of smart home products and just more bandwidth consuming products in general, we've really seen people up their Wi-Fi game. I would love for you to talk about kind of how thinking on Wi-Fi has evolved in the home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're certainly right. Over the last 20 years, since the late 90s when Wi-Fi first came out, we have seen a drastic shift in the applications that were running over the wireless network. Whereas 20 years ago, you might have 2 laptops primarily doing web page downloads or file downloads. You now have a real broad set of devices in the home. For instance, streaming video, perhaps you're doing high definition video on demand, maybe multiple TV screens in the home, also phones that might be doing interactive gaming or video, IoT devices where you now may have 5 or even 10 devices to control various appliances, light switches, plugs. And in addition to that, we now have a new transformation in 2020 where we're now relying on that wireless connectivity for video conferencing, for taking video calls to our friends and loved ones, going to school, going to work, doctor's appointments. There's just been an explosion in the things that we're doing in the home. And that's really completely changed the requirements that we have for Wi-Fi. Now, as part of this transformation, as these applications have changed, we have realized that Wi-Fi is no longer an appliance where we can, for instance, purchase a router and then leave it for years. It's an area where the Wi-Fi network itself must be upgraded as our needs have changed. And so there is now a market for higher performance Wi-Fi routers. Beginning about 5 years ago, we had the advent of Wi-Fi mesh. And all of these transitions have enabled better bandwidth for all of our devices. It's given better connectivity and coverage where you can now have Wi-Fi connectivity wherever you are within the home. It provides better support for what we call mobility, which is taking your connected device and walking across the home and then continuing to have a strong signal, and then having much better lower latency, which allows a more realistic experience when you're doing things like two-way video calling. So all of those requirements have changed the market where we have stopped looking at Wi-Fi as something you install and forget to something where we are actively upgrading on a regular basis as our needs have changed.
Yes. And now that Wi-Fi is such an essential ingredient in our home, I still have to ask. Felt like with mesh we were getting somewhere. But I will say Wi-Fi in my house is still kind of frustratingly bad in parts. That did not solve all my problems. So what can we expect with the transition to Wi-Fi 6? And will that help my issues?
It's a great question. And the short answer is yes. Wi-Fi 6 is one of those key technologies that is enabling this next generation of the home Wi-Fi infrastructure. Mesh went a long way to give us better connectivity throughout the home, meaning you'd have better range and you'd have fewer blank spots. However, there are still a great set of opportunities to improve that experience of connectivity in the home. Specifically, as you add more devices, the airspace becomes more crowded. All of your Wi-Fi devices may be communicating over the same frequency band. And as a result, slower devices may actually be occupying the radio waves and then taking bandwidth away from those higher speed devices. So a lot of the opportunities for innovation in Wi-Fi come down to how can we make it more efficient for more devices to share that radio space. And this is where Wi-Fi 6 comes in. There are a number of new features within Wi-Fi 6 which make it easier for devices to communicate in parallel. So for instance, if you have two devices which are both trying to access the internet at the same time, whereas in the past one might wait for the other, which introduces delay, now both devices can communicate over the same time. This is done through two features. One is called OFDMA, the other is called MU-MIMO, and both of them allow devices to communicate at the same time or in parallel. Another element is providing a higher speed connection to all of those devices. Now with mesh, if for instance you have two mesh nodes within the home, your devices that are very close to the mesh might have a very clean, very fast connection. But as you move further away from the mesh, those devices actually slow down. They get a slower speed connection. An example would be if you have the mesh node, let's say in the hallway, but you have a television connected in the bedroom, which might be 30 feet away. In this case, you might be streaming high bandwidth video to the television, and that connection is solid, it's working, but it might not be running at the fastest speed it could. But as a result, that communication is actually taking a longer period of time because those data packets are actually transmitting over the air more slowly. That has the impact of slowing down all of the devices in your home, not only that television, because it's consuming more of the airspace to complete those transactions of sending those data packets. So the solution there is to actually have more mesh devices, more mesh nodes in the home, so that wherever you are, you have a higher speed connection, so that each of those applications can complete its work over the air more quickly. So this works hand in hand with Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6 provides you features to enable that parallel transmission. And then the next generation of mesh, through this concept of densification or more mesh nodes, provides you higher speed connections, which make the experience better for all of the devices sharing the network.
All right. So the short answer seems to be that, yes, it's worth it to upgrade to Wi-Fi 6 today, even though I don't have that many Wi-Fi 6 capable devices.
Absolutely. So there are a number of features in Wi-Fi 6 that can improve the communication of the mesh network itself. What's interesting about Wi-Fi mesh is that it's using wireless connectivity both to connect to your devices, but also to connect between the mesh nodes and ultimately to your internet connection, your DSL or cable. And with Wi-Fi 6, those features enable the mesh network itself to perform better. So you can get better performance even if you don't have a lot of Wi-Fi 6 capable devices in your home yet today.
All right, I'm sold. So going forward, though, I feel like my Wi-Fi router has become this home of services that maybe my ISP or someone else charges me for, like security kind of services. I feel like sometimes they're smart home hubs. Sometimes I don't know what else they could be, but they're getting a lot of features. Sometimes they're security alarms. So talk to me about just the broadening of the capabilities both in Wi-Fi itself, so I know there's technologies like cognitive systems that y'all are working with, and then also within the routers.
One of the exciting transformations we've seen is moving from mesh Wi-Fi being only a connectivity service to being a more active participant in terms of management of the home network. One example is the advent of new web-based control tools, for instance, smartphone apps that would allow you to control your Wi-Fi network. And those have been enhanced to provide things like security controls, for parental controls, for doing things like setting the time when individual devices or even individual users can access the internet. So it's become the place where you can configure access and set security policies for all the users in your home, for instance, for the children in the home. Moving beyond that, we're seeing emerging applications where the mesh network itself can be a control point for other devices in the house. So for instance, if you have an IoT network where you're controlling light switches or plugs using Wi-Fi, you can then use the Wi-Fi network to control those devices. And then moving beyond there, we see the Wi-Fi equipment itself being integrated with the home hub. So for instance, with smart speakers, where you can speak a command and then have the home react, for instance, turning on lights or changing the thermostat. Well, we're approaching a place in the market where the Wi-Fi equipment itself can adopt those capabilities so that you're not talking about separate appliances. You're talking about the home automation functions being integrated directly with mesh network connectivity.
So my digital assistant, it lives in my Wi-Fi router?
That's right.
Okay. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about that is there's a focus on making some of our smart home stuff, plus I would think some of the information that Wi-Fi that can be gathered over a Wi-Fi network, making a lot of that local. How would moving that to the router help with keeping the data and the instructions between my devices on my network?
So when we talk about the mesh Wi-Fi as a control point in the home, there are a lot of new opportunities there. The first is better privacy could be provided. As an example, when we talk about some of these home automation assistants, some of them might rely on the cloud, where you would give a command, it would then go to the cloud, and then a command would come back to, for instance, play a song or turn off a light or something like this. When you have the mesh network being integrated with that personal assistant, you can move to a model where you can give commands that are actually interpreted by the Wi-Fi network in your home And then those actions can be taken locally. For instance, you can ask your smart assistant to turn on a light, and that command will be listened to by the Wi-Fi network in your home. It will be interpreted, and then the action will be taken in the home. And this has very good implications for privacy, where a number of the things that you're doing, which are very internal to the household and central to household operation, don't need to leave your home.
That's exciting. So what should we be looking forward to next in Wi-Fi? Just because Wi-Fi 6 is here, man, we should be looking for the next big thing.
In the next couple of years, I think we will see a couple very exciting transformations in the home Wi-Fi network. The first is this continuing evolution towards high bandwidth, low latency connectivity that gives you a more realistic interactive experiences. For instance, with real-time gaming, high-definition video, and two-way teleconferencing. And that will track the advancement in those devices themselves. The second key trend is in moving to more ways to interact with your home network. As I mentioned, we have smart apps today to control your Wi-Fi. We will move towards voice control of the Wi-Fi network, where you can give commands directly to the Wi-Fi router. And then over time, we will also see physical interaction with the network. There is technology today that allows the Wi-Fi network to detect motion based on radio waves within the home. Now, this is more private than a camera because it's not a full video image, but it rather is detecting motion. And one can picture a future where lights can turn on your home just when you're walking down the hallway because the Wi-Fi network detects your presence. So we see a future where the Wi-Fi network itself can be part of an interactive digital experience based on this technology for motion detection using Wi-Fi radio waves.
I am really excited about that. And I think it'll be really compelling to think about not just motion, but thinking about doing fall detection and improving those algorithms. But some of that is a little potentially creepy to people, I think. So how do you think we'll enable these skills in ways that keep people comfortable and feel secure?
So I think the industry as a whole has become very cognizant of this notion of privacy over the last 5 or 10 years. And not just within Wi-Fi, but across other applications, companies have become much more aware in providing users transparency about these privacy policies and about the information that's being collected is a key part of providing confidence. And as we use our home network connected devices for these purposes, it will be important for the providers of those services and those products to, number one, design the products in a way that provides an immersive interactive experience that still provides good privacy, but also to be transparent with their users in terms of what information is being collected and whether it's actually being used real time or whether there is any form of collected information there.
All right. And who is going to bring this magical Wi-Fi to the people? And I ask this because when I started out covering this space, buying your own router was something that very few people actually did. They just got whatever their cable company or their ISP gave them. And so now it feels like that shifted a little bit. So I'm curious, who will provide my magical Wi-Fi and all of these features? My ISP? Do I buy it myself? Does Amazon send it to me or Google?
In the last 5 years, we've seen an evolution in the way that Wi-Fi connectivity is delivered to the home user. For instance, today you can get mesh Wi-Fi equipment from your service provider, for instance, your cable or DSL provider, or you have an option to purchase the equipment from a retailer. And there you have options between a number of different systems OEMs or different manufacturers. And you have this new generation of more integrated end-to-end experiences where you talk about offerings from some of the well-known internet cloud companies. So there's multiple different channels for getting that Wi-Fi connectivity. And each of them are differentiated, number one, by the equipment, by the Wi-Fi router itself that they provide, but also the services that they provide on top of that Wi-Fi network. And for a consumer, it's a matter of looking at what type of connectivity you want, but also what is the type of service that you'd like to get as part of that Wi-Fi experience. Some home users may only want to have connectivity, and some may want to have a more immersive experience where they can have connectivity that guarantees security or visibility. There are a lot of opportunities for integrating that Wi-Fi connectivity with more home management functions like IoT devices. So there's a lot of options for customers. And the key there is to look not only at the hardware, but also at the service that's provided from the manufacturer with that Wi-Fi equipment.
And what should I look for in those services?
So when talking about services provided, the first is in the area of management of the network. A number of the offerings provide you applications that provide you better visibility into how well your network is working. The next area is in security and also parental controls for the family. This is a key new transition with so many digital devices, from tablets to televisions to phones, being able to control what type of content people in the home can access and also what hours they can access it. That's an increasingly important application. And a lot of Wi-Fi providers have tools to allow parents to set those kind of policies for the children in the home. Those are two examples of services to look for. So there are also a new set of applications that we see will come to market in the next couple of years. One very interesting one is in the area of elder care. So in some cases, family members may have a loved one that is living on their own, but may not have someone with them to help on a day-to-day basis. And there can sometimes be a concern if, for instance, that person were to fall or were to be injured, would someone know about that and be able to help? Well, that specific problem is something that Wi-Fi can help with. Using this technology for RF motion detection, the Wi-Fi network itself can detect when someone falls or if someone is not moving. And then it's possible to then send an indication to the administrator of that Wi-Fi network, for instance, the person responsible for the care of that person, and then you can take action quickly. This is one example of an advanced new service that can provide something that in the past was really not even possible with technology.
Okay, and just because you're in the networking world, I have a home full of connected devices. How many networks do you think we'll have in the smart home going forward?
That's a very good question. And when we look at Wi-Fi networking technology and wireless in general, we see a single unified network in terms of home infrastructure, where all of your Wi-Fi devices are able to connect to your home mesh. And even where you're running multiple different virtual networks, for instance, if you're running business applications versus home applications, all of them can be converged on that single network. On top of that, we see your IoT devices in the home being able to connect to the Wi-Fi network. And even if some of those devices might not even be Wi-Fi, such as if they're Bluetooth, there will be technology to bridge those devices so that ultimately they connect into the same infrastructure within the home. And that allows you better management and control of all those devices to keep track of what is connected, also to be able to change the network very quickly through that single point of control. So over time, we will see your home network or your home infrastructure, and that will work in parallel with the cellular network, with what you get on your phone when you're outside of the home. So we really see a future where you have your home infrastructure and then the cellular network when you're away from the home.
Got it. Okay. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show, giving us a sneak peek on what to look for with regards to Wi-Fi and why we should all update our routers.
Great. Thanks very much, Stacy. I really appreciate your time.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.